Welcome to the deep dive. This is where we take your source material. Could be articles, research, notes you've gathered, and really dig in to pull out the key insights.
Yep, the idea is to help you feel on top of things, informed, without drowning in all the information out there.
Exactly. We're kind of like your navigators through, well, today it's the world of AI trends.
Guiding you to what really matters.
And for this deep dive, we've got a pretty interesting stack of sources. It covers new tech, market moves, job impacts, regulation, security, the works.
It's a broad landscape right now.
It really is. So our mission today is quite practical. We're going to take all this information and sort of build a snapshot. Think of it like creating a quick LinkedIn newsletter, highlighting specific companies and what they're actually doing.
Right. Not just the hype, but the concrete actions. Who's launching what? Who's investing where?
Precisely. It's a way for you to quickly see the key players and their game plan right now.
Cutting through the noise to see the actual developments on the ground. We'll try and distill that into some clear points.
Okay, let's jump right in and start building those newsletter sections. First up, got to be the new stuff, right? New AI solutions and product announcements. What companies are rolling out new capabilities based on these sources?
Yeah, looking through this material, there's definitely a lot of activity. Companies unveiling new models, adding features, getting some important validation.
Okay, so for our newsletter, Section 1, New Tech and Capabilities. What's a standout announcement we should flag?
Well, one that caught my eye was Druid AI. They've actually achieved Microsoft's first certified software provider status, specifically for healthcare AI.
Oh, interesting. First one.
Yeah, and it's for the CEE, MEA regions, Central and Eastern Europe, Middle East, and Africa. It's a pretty big deal, a mark of trust for their enterprise agentic AI platform in healthcare. Shows they meet some tough standards.
That certification sounds like a serious vote of confidence, especially in healthcare. Okay, what about the core AI models themselves? Any updates or new releases?
We definitely see movement there. Google's, for instance, they've updated their Gemini 2.5 Pro model, and the focus, according to the sources, is on improving performance for coding tasks. They're calling it an updated preview that's rolling out now.
Coding. Seems like everyone's focused on coding assistants. I saw OpenAI mentioned quite a bit there, too.
Oh, absolutely. They're making a couple of significant moves. First, they've made Codex, their powerful AI coding agent, available right within the standard ChatGPT Plus subscription.
So for the $20 a month?
Exactly. Codex used to be more separate, so folding it into Plus, well, it puts pretty advanced coding tools directly into the hands of millions of paying users. It's sort of democratizing access.
Yeah, that's a big shift, bringing pro-level tools down to the plus tier. What about features for, the average free ChatGPT user?
They haven't forgot them. OpenAI also rolled out a longer-term memory feature, even for free users.
Memory, so it remembers past chats.
Yeah, the idea is to make interactions more personalized. It recalls details from previous conversations, moving towards those more persistent, context-aware assistants we keep hearing about. And doing it for that massive free user base is significant.
Memory is definitely key for making these things feel less transactional, more helpful over time. Okay, and sticking with OpenAI, what about developers building on their platform? Any updates for them?
Yes, for people building AI agents, OpenAI upgraded their agents' SDK, the software development kit, basically their toolkit.
Right.
The enhancements focus on things like better platform compatibility, adding support for voice interfaces, and improving observability.
Yeah.
Which just means helping developers track and understand how their agents are actually doing.
So making it easier to build and manage these agents.
Exactly. It shows they're really trying to support that whole ecosystem around building these more capable AI systems.
Okay. Now, speaking of coding, but maybe a bit more for the enterprise, I think I saw something about Mistral AI.
You did. Mistral AI introduced something called Mistral Code. They're pitching this as a customizable AI coding assistant, specifically for enterprise workflows.
Customizable, so
Yeah.
businesses can tweak it.
That seems to be the angle. The emphasis is on giving companies more control and security over their coding tools. It suggests a focus on privacy, maybe fitting it into specific internal processes.
Got it. Control and security for corporate use. It definitely feels like specialized models are popping up everywhere. What about the big hardware player, NVIDIA? What are they up to?
NVIDIA, yeah, always central to this. They've got several things going on, according to these sources. First, they released Llama Nematron Nano VL.
Whoa, say that again?
Yeah, it's a mouthful.
Fun.
Llama Nematron Nano VL. It's a compact vision language model, so understands images and text.
Okay.
And this one is specifically optimized for document understanding. Think processing complex business documents, that sort of thing.
Right, a practical, targeted model, not trying to be everything. What about just raw power, the hardware side?
Oh, definitely. NVIDIA is highlighting their latest platform, Blackwell. They're saying it delivers significantly higher performance, up to 2.6 times higher in recent MLPerf training benchmarks.
2.6x, that's a big jump.
It is. And they also showcase their speech AI models, claiming industry-leading accuracy and performance there too. So, pushing performance on hardware and specific AI tasks like speech.
Okay, so hardware muscle and specialized skills, are they providing software tools to go with that?
They are. They talked about using their Forest Inference library for speeding up inference, running train models specifically for tree-based models, which are still super common in data science.
Right, not just deep learning.
Exactly. And they also showed how AI, maybe LLMs, can create self-correcting workflows. The example was for trade capture and evaluation in finance, basically using AI to automate and validate complex business processes.
Self-correcting workflows. That sounds powerful. Wow, okay, that's a lot just from NVIDIA. Any other interesting new models mentioned?
One more worth flagging. Hugging Face, the big open source hub, released Small VLA.
Small VLA.
Yeah, SMO-VLA. It's a compact vision language action model. The key here is it's aimed specifically at affordable and efficient robotics.
Robot.
Right, trying to make complex AI capabilities accessible for robots or other devices that don't have massive computing power on board.
Okay, that is a packed section just on new tech releases. Really shows the speed, but also that trend towards specialization. All right, let's shift gears a bit. Beyond the new products themselves, where are companies placing their bets? I mean, through investments and partnerships, this tells us a lot about where they see value. Our next newsletter section, where the money and muscle are moving.
Exactly. Following the money or the strategic team-ups often reveals emerging priorities or where companies think critical needs are developing.
So what stood out in the sources regarding investments? Any key deals?
The main one highlighted here is Databricks Ventures. That's the investment arm of Databricks, big data and AI platform company.
Okay.
They made a strategic investment in a company called Noma Security, and the focus is very specific, securing the entire AI life cycle.
The whole life cycle, meaning?
Yeah, from the data used for training to the models themselves during training and deployment, the outputs. Basically, recognizing that AI systems create brand new security challenges that need specialized solutions. This investment really underscores that.
AI security as its own discipline. Makes sense. What about partnerships? Any interesting collaborations popping up?
Yes, there's a notable one between Palantir, known for their heavy-duty data analytics platforms, and Bolt, which is in the checkout and payment space.
Palantir and Bolt, that's an interesting mix.
It is. They're partnering to offer a payments process that's enhanced by AI. The goal seems to be using AI to make the checkout experience smoother, maybe more secure, potentially more personalized. It's a really fascinating intersection of AI, big data analytics, and fintech embedding AI right into the flow of financial transactions.
Yeah, that definitely shows AI moving beyond just back-end analysis and into core customer-facing processes. Good examples for that section. Okay, let's widen the lens now. Let's talk about broader corporate strategy, market dynamics, and even how geopolitics is shaping the AI landscape. How are companies positioning themselves? How are they reacting to, the bigger picture? This could be our strategic plays and market signals section.
Right. This is where you see companies adapting to things like regulations, supply chain pressures, identifying major new market opportunities, and sometimes even trying to influence policy.
Let's start with that geopolitical angle. The chip restrictions impacting China are a big factor, right?
Absolutely. And the sources highlight how Chinese AI firms, names like DeepSeek, Baidu, Tencent come up, are showing, real resilience and cleverness.
How so?
Despite the U.S. export restrictions limiting their access to the absolute top-end AI chips, they're apparently having success optimizing their large language models for efficiency. They're getting more bang for their buck from the hardware they can access.
So necessity is the mother of invention, basically.
Kind of. It reinforces this push within China for technological self-reliance, and they're really leveraging open-source innovation, too, to work around these limitations. It's a clear strategic adaptation.
Interesting. Constraints driving innovation. Now, how is the biggest player in the chip game, NVIDIA, reacting to these restrictions publicly?
Well, NVIDIA's CEO, Jensen Huang, hasn't been quiet about it. According to these sources, he's publicly criticized the U.S. export curbs.
Oh, really? What's his argument?
He's quoted saying the assumption that China can't make its own AI chips is just wrong. And he warned that the U.S. and by extension NVIDIA, risks losing access to the huge China market because of these policies.
Wow, that's a direct challenge to the policy direction.
Yeah, it's a major industry leader weighing in very publicly, highlighting that tension between national security aims and global business realities.
Definitely a space to watch. Okay, shifting slightly, what about controlling the data needed to train these models? That's crucial too.
Hugely important. And X, formerly Twitter, made a really significant move there. They updated their developer policy.
How so?
The new rules explicitly prevent companies from using content scraped from the X platform to fine-tune or train foundational AI models, especially the big frontier ones.
So, locking down their data.
Essentially, yes. It's a clear move to assert control over the value of that massive, real-time data set their platform generates, treating it like proprietary fuel for AI, not something others can just take and use to build competing models.
That makes strategic sense, protecting their asset. How are more traditional industries like media thinking strategically about AI?
Well, it seems the Washington Post is making some moves, though perhaps quietly. The sources suggest they're secretly planning to start publishing articles actually created using AI.
Whoa, AI-generated news articles.
Apparently. And they're even reportedly looking for partnerships with other publishers to do this. It signals a major news organization strategically experimenting with AI, not just for efficiency, but for actual content generation, maybe exploring entirely new publishing models.
That's a potentially game-changing strategic experiment for legacy media. Okay, what about companies targeting very specific high-value sectors?
We see Anthropic, the company behind the Claude models, doing this. They unveiled a new set called Claude Gov models.
Gov models, as in government.
Exactly. Tailored specifically for U.S. national security customers. The focus is on tasks like planning and analysis within that sensitive sector. It's a very clear strategic decision to build specialized, trusted AI for government needs.
Vertical focus. Got it. What about the broader enterprise market? That seems like a huge battleground.
It really is.
Yeah.
And OpenAI looks like they're making a major push there. The sources mentioned they've hit 3 million paying business users.
3 million? Wow.
Yeah, it's a big number. And they're actively launching new workplace tools, things like connectors, plus the more accessible Codex agent we talked about. This growth and product expansion is being positioned as a direct competitive move against giants like Microsoft in the enterprise software space.
Going head-to-head with Microsoft in the workplace, that's bold. What are other tech giants doing strategically with AI, maybe more internally?
Meta has a really ambitious internal goal, according to these sources. They want to use AI to automate every single step of the ad production process.
Every step.
That's the aim. A huge strategic effort to boost efficiency in their core business advertising. And interestingly, on the hardware side, they also released their Area Gen 2 glasses. The sources point out these aren't just wearables. They're strategically important as tools for collecting AI training data, especially data about the real world from a first-person perspective.
So the glasses feed the AI development. Clever. Automating the core business and building hardware for data collection. Those are fundamental strategic plays. Any other strategic positioning worth noting?
Just maybe how companies like Salesforce are framing AI. They're strategically messaging that AI is absolutely essential now for streamlining enterprise workflows. It's less a single product launch and more about integrating AI deeply and positioning it as foundational for business efficiency across their whole platform.
Right, making AI table stakes for modern business operations. Okay, so we've got adapting to restrictions, controlling data, new content models, targeting sectors, aggressive enterprise plays, internal automation. It's a really dynamic, strategic landscape out there. Now, we know AI isn't just about cool new tech. It brings challenges, right? Big ones. So our next newsletter section could be addressing the hurdles: security, bias, jobs, and adoption. What are companies and organizations actually doing to manage these risks and impacts?
Yeah, these sources definitely highlight ongoing efforts to make AI safer and fairer, but also a lot of discussion and concern about the broader societal impacts, like jobs.
Let's revisit security first, building on that Noma investment.
Right. That investment in Noma security is significant because it's about securing the entire AI life cycle. It's not just about protecting input data. It's about protecting the models themselves from being manipulated, ensuring the outputs are trustworthy, securing the whole pipeline. It treats AI security as its own complex field.
A whole new frontier for security pros. Okay, what about the critical issue of bias? We hear about it all the time. Are there concrete actions being taken?
Yes, and this is actually encouraging. The sources show major players are actively developing and sharing tools. Microsoft has its FairLearn toolkit. IBM has AIF 360. Google has the What If tool.
Okay.
These are open source tools designed specifically to help developers and data scientists find, measure, and then work to reduce bias in their machine learning systems. They provide practical methods for auditing fairness.
Open source tools, that's good. It helps everyone. Are there examples in the sources of why these tools are so necessary, like real-world cases?
Absolutely. The sources mention a couple of well-known historical examples. Amazon's AI hiring tool that had to be scrapped because it was biased against women.
Right, I remember that.
And Twitter's image cropping algorithm, which showed racial bias in how it chose which part of an image to display. It had to be deactivated. These cases really highlight how easily bias can creep in and why proactively using fairness tools is so important, rather than just reacting after the fact.
Stark reminders. Okay, let's tackle the big one. AI's impact on jobs. It's hugely debated. What perspectives are coming through in these sources?
There's definitely a strong public debate reflected here. Anthropic CEO Dario Amodei is quoted with a pretty stark warning.
What's he saying?
He predicts AI could potentially wipe out up to half of entry-level white-collar jobs and maybe lead to 10–20% unemployment in the U.S. within just 5 years. He seems to feel people aren't really grasping the potential scale of disruption.
Wow, half of entry-level jobs. That's alarming. Is that the consensus view in the sources?
Not at all. There's a strong counterpoint from billionaire investor Mark Cuban. He really pushes back against the mass job elimination idea.
What's his take?
He argues AI will actually be a catalyst for innovation and entrepreneurship, ultimately creating jobs, not just destroying them. He sees it more like past tech shifts. Jobs will change, new roles will emerge. He's much more optimistic about augmentation and creativity.
So diametrically opposed views. Mass disruption versus evolution and growth. Is there maybe a middle ground perspective from the investment world?
There is. Robert F. Smith, CEO of Vista Equity Partners, a big private equity firm, predicts that AI will force about 60% of people in his industry finance investment to either find different work or fundamentally reskill.
60% in finance?
Yeah. So that suggests significant disruption even in highly skilled fields, but maybe more industry-specific than Amodei's broad prediction, yet less optimistic than Cuban's overall growth view. It really highlights that the impact could vary a lot depending on the sector.
Okay, clearly a massive issue with no easy answers and different impacts likely for different fields. Beyond the job debate, what about the practical challenges inside companies trying to manage AI adoption?
One interesting point from a recent study mentioned is the rise of shadow AI.
Shadow AI, like shadow IT.
Exactly the same concept.
Yeah.
Employees using AI tools, maybe free online ones, maybe department-specific tools, without official approval or IT oversight. This is apparently a major headache for IT departments now. And it's forcing organizations to scramble and figure out internal AI governance policies, safe usage guidelines, how to manage tools people are already bringing in.
Yeah, the genie's out of the bottle. They need to manage it.
Yeah.
And AI isn't cheap to run, right? Is cost management a challenge?
Absolutely. The Phoenix Foundation, which focuses on cloud cost management, has actually launched a new training program specifically for managing AI costs.
Training just for AI costs.
Yep. Because running these big models, especially in the cloud, can get really expensive really fast, and the costs can be complex to track. It shows AI brings significant operational and financial challenges that need specialized skills.
That's a very practical, real-world response. Okay, finally on challenges. Any broader efforts mentioned towards just building inherently safer AI systems?
Yes. The sources mention AI pioneer Yoshua Bengio. Through his nonprofit, Law Zero, he's launching initiatives focused on developing AI systems with safety and public good as the primary goals.
So prioritizing safety over, say, profit or pure capability.
Exactly. De-emphasizing things like autonomous capabilities and profit maximization in favor of building AI that's fundamentally aligned with societal benefit. It's a different approach, coming from outside the purely commercial drive.
Interesting. So from technical fixes for bias and security to grappling with huge societal questions like jobs and practical issues like shadow AI and costs, there's a lot happening on the challenge side of the AI coin. Okay, let's move to our final key area that really jumped out from the sources, the practicalities of agentic AI. We keep hearing the term agents, often sounds very futuristic. But what are companies and developers actually doing with this concept right now? What are the real-world practical challenges they're hitting? Let's make this our putting agents to work section.
Yeah, agent is definitely a buzzword, maybe sometimes a bit vague. But these sources give us some concrete examples, and they also pull back the curtain on the practical, sometimes messy realities people face when trying to build them.
Oh, so what's the gist from the sources? What's the current state of play with agents in practice?
Well, first, there's a clear need for skills. An educational platform towards AI is offering a full-stack agent engineering course.
Full stack agent engineering.
Yeah. It's designed to teach people how to actually architect, build, and deploy multi-agent systems that work reliably in production. It tells you that building real agents isn't just about writing a clever prompt. It requires solid engineering practices.
Training is definitely key. Are companies trying to showcase what agents can do?
Yes, H companies mentioned running an AI agent prompting challenge. They're using their own autonomous agent platform, Runner H, and asking developers to build solutions for repetitive tasks.
Ah, like a hackathon for agents.
Sort of. It promotes their tech, but also helps uncover practical, repeatable business use cases where agents might actually be useful today.
Smart way to crowdsource ideas. Are companies building specific types of agents for businesses?
There's an example of a company called Avacia. They're building what they describe as a horizontal engineering agent.
Horizontal, meaning?
The idea is it acts like a co-pilot across the entire engineering lifecycle, not just one specific task like coding. It's meant to integrate different tools engineers use and help the whole team be more efficient, more broad, less narrow.
A co-pilot for the whole engineering team.
Yeah.
That's ambitious. But what are the developers actually building this stuff talking about? What are the grassroots challenges?
This is where the community discussions like Reddit threads mentioned in the sources get really interesting. They reveal the practical day-to-day stuff.
Okay, like what are the pain points?
Well, people share success, agents checking dashboards, writing reports, making simple data-driven decisions. But they also raise big concerns about privacy and security.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Especially when an agent needs to handle sensitive company data, but also needs to call out to a powerful large language model run by, OpenAI or Google. How do you manage that data flow securely? It's a major tension.
Security and data governance again. What about just figuring out how to build one in the first place? Is it straightforward?
Apparently not always. There seems to be real confusion, especially for newcomers, about which frameworks to use. LangChain, Crew AI, Autogen are mentioned. People are asking basic questions like, where do I even start? The tooling landscape is evolving so fast, it's hard to keep up.
Yeah, framework overload. Okay, so you build one. How do you know if it's any good or if it's doing what you expect?
That's another hot topic. Agent evaluation. People are struggling with how to test agents effectively. How do you set up good feedback loops? How do you prevent regressions where a new version breaks something? There's apparently a lack of easy-to-use tools just for assessing agent performance reliably. Someone's even working on building better evaluation tools because the need is so clear.
Can't trust what you can't measure. Makes sense. And I assume running these agents, especially complex ones, can get pricey.
Definitely. Cost optimization is a very practical discussion point. People are sharing tips, things like caching results from API calls, batching requests together to make fewer calls to the expensive LLMs. Standard software tricks, but essential here. One user apparently cut their API costs significantly this way.
Practical tips from the trenches. Any other specific challenges mentioned, like particular types of agents people want but find hard to build?
Yeah, there's talk about the difficulty in finding or building good local browser automation agents.
Agents that control your web browser.
Right, agents that can run on your own machine and interact with websites to perform tasks. Getting them to work reliably with complex web interfaces seems tricky. And of course, people trying to figure out monetization. What kinds of agent services will people actually pay for? What problems are valuable enough to solve with an agent?
So it's this mix: technical hurdles, security worries, tooling confusion, cost management, and the fundamental question of business value. And OpenAI is trying to help with this.
Well, yeah, as we mentioned, their upgraded agents SDK is part of that. It shows they're actively trying to provide better tools to support developers tackling these challenges.
Got it. Are there any sort of bigger ideas or concepts about agents floating around in the sources that might be influencing all this practical work?
Yes, definitely. Dr. Eric Singh, a well-known AI researcher, has mentioned conceptualizing agent models as a really key future direction for AI, thinking of them as systems capable of goal-directed behavior, interaction, more than just processing input. And Jadoin Farmer, who works in complex systems, is using AI techniques like reinforcement learning to make the agents in economic simulations behave more realistically. These kinds of higher-level ideas definitely shape how people are thinking about building the next generation of agents.
Okay, so it runs the gamut from foundational academic concepts down to people on Reddit figuring out how to cache API calls. The whole agent landscape is very much under construction. So there we have it. We've gone through that stack of sources, new products, investments, strategies, the challenges, the practicalities of agents, and distilled it down. We've essentially built that snapshot, highlighting key company actions and market dynamics. The kind of stuff you could quickly put into a newsletter or share with your team to say, here's what the key players are actually doing in AI right now.
Exactly. And I think framing it that way, focusing on the actors, the companies, the organizations, even the developer community and their specific moves makes it much more digestible. It's more actionable than just talking about general trends. You really see who's doing what and where the energy's shifting.
Right. It's not just headlines or abstract ideas. It's about understanding the players, their strategies, how they're dealing with everything from chip restrictions and data control down to the nitty-gritty of building reliable agents and managing costs. It's the game plan in action.
Absolutely. And seeing that game plan unfold, seeing these specific actions and challenges, well, it naturally leads to a question for you, the listener.
Uh-huh.
Now that you've seen this snapshot, who's doing what, the hurdles they're facing, the opportunities they're chasing, what specific actions might you or your organization think about taking? Or maybe, what should you be preparing for based on these trends we've just discussed?